For usual, everything else channels for educational purposes only is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's take a look at some alts. We have FOMC in T-minus 1 hour. We have the announcement in 30 minutes. Very likely to cut 25 basis points. That's less important to the market. And what's more important is whether or not there's going to be some sort of dovish rhetoric. Is this a hawkish cut? Is this going to be a dovish cut? Is Powell going to roll over? I don't think it matters either way because you have Hassett, who's effectively the shadow Fed chair, coming out here saying we want rates low, low, low quickly. So with all that being said, yes, FOMC is important today. Yes, it will dictate near-term price action. In 2026, I think what's most important is who's the Fed chair and is the Fed independent? The Fed is unlikely to be fully independent, and that means rates probably going lower, which in a perfect world means more liquidity and higher inflation, not great, but also an environment in which assets on the risk side do better, specifically risk assets, potentially alts. That is to be seen. So I think it's important now to focus on what's working in the moment and not what's hoping to work later on. And I don't want to bury the lead here that ETH BTC is the strongest chart, bar none, in the market right now. All sorts of stuff happening on this chart, namely the Kumo breakout here with a bullish TK cross. You don't have a bullish cloud. I wouldn't say it's as bullish as it was here, but to see this come all the way down, refuse to break down, and now breaking back up, there's a very obvious diag here that we're breaking up from as well. Some sort of box, triangle, King's Castle, inverted head and shoulders, whatever. All this collectively looks very, very good to me. I don't know if we're going to see immediate continuation off this, but this is the type of chart where after a move, I really like getting back in a big way because it has fully consolidated. Easily this can be wrong. I like stop losses somewhere at new lows-ish, 035 or whatever that is. But this looks very, very good. Very, very good. Now, if FOMC is more hawkish than dovish, maybe IWM and ETH sells off. We'll get to IWM in a second, but that's the caveat for today before FOMC. Even ETH BTC is finally holding within the cloud. This has the potential to morph into some sort of cup and handle, inverted head and shoulder, whatever. You know, the cup and handle police are going to say you can't get a cup and handle at the bottom. Fine, whatever. In any regard, if this can follow through, get back to highs, hold those highs into 2026. This is where my head's at, into 2026. This looks very good for potentially a multi-month move higher, right? What is it going to take? It's going to take price above 041 in 2026. Maybe it gets there early, but if you get a weekly breakout on this pair, I would expect a significant move. It's already been a great bounce since the bottom. It's reconsolidated, and that's what the cloud is signaling. Maybe what's most important is what is IWM doing? IWM is the Russell 2000. These are zombie companies that need to refinance their debt. They want rates low as possible so that they can survive. They're not necessarily profitable. ETH is ETH, but it's trading like a zombie company. It's trading like it's part of the Russell 2000. Since 2018, even off this chart, it has correlated fairly highly with the Russell. In post-COVID, immediately after 2020, it did lead ETH. IWM led everything else. What do we have here? We have some alligator jaws, IWM leading, ETH selling off more. Certainly a disconnect here in the correlation. But over time, I would expect these correlations to snapshot, to come back together. So this would mean one of two things. Either we are going to reconnect here with IWM at some point, or IWM is going to reconnect with ETH. But my assumption is ETH will be reconnecting with IWM. On the BTC side, quickly, the AI backtested cloud does favor a bullish breakout later on in the year, 94, 95. The risk right now is this a bear flag or not? Is this a rising wedge type variant? That's kind of what it looks like. You know, it's going to take a catalyst, hopefully FOMC, to move us higher. Now, it feels like IWM, ETH equities are sort of sniffing that out. ETH with the BTC backtested cloud, not the ETH backtested cloud, but same vibes here. This chart looks better than BTC here right now. So again, you can trade strength, you can trade what you wish for, or you can just be objective about it and say, hopefully we get more trades. Hopefully we get 10 trades out of one idea. Hopefully ETH moves first and BTC follows, and hopefully we get more setups. But even with some of the other DATs, this is Metaplanet. This looks great for a bounce. Looks great for an eventual edge to edge. Again, I'm thinking into 2026. Maybe you get a massive multi-month inverted head and shoulders into the cloud here Would this mean MNAV expansion? I don't know, maybe. I don't really care. But I think it's important to start looking at some of this stuff that has just sort of fallen off the table. I've been looking at SUI G a lot lately. It's another one. Multi-week bottoming attempt. We'll see if this goes anywhere. Kind of tried here and failed. So a failure would look like a new lower low. Anything below 190, let's say. But I love that this is holding at the cloud, in the cloud, and has done so for multiple months now. It's tried. This might be the time. BMNR is another one. Didn't trade this, didn't take the trade, but we did kind of talk about the inverted head and shoulders at the bottom of a parabolic move. I think it's important to always follow through with stuff, even though you're not trading it, because that gives you confidence to take the trade next time, to say, okay, I know it could happen here. I've seen it happen. I've felt it happen. And you did get follow through with BMNR. So as much of a move as you've seen here, even on BMNR, not quite bullish yet, right? This is all sort of mean reversion stuff that's happening. And Metaplanet outperforming MSTR, BMNR outperforming MSTR. Each of these is going to have their own idiosyncratic specificity on why they're doing what they're doing. But if BMNR is ETH and ETH BTC is winning, I expect BMNR to outperform MSTR. I'd expect BMNR to outperform Metaplanet, right? I don't really think too much deeper than that. Something else that still I'm fairly confident in for 2026 that I think I break with Ben Cowan on would be this is a bearish setup for dominance. This looks like a head and shoulders. It walks and talks and quacks like a head and shoulders. This would need to exceed 61% on a close on the 3-day to start to get me worried that this is not a head and shoulders. But this looks like dominance is trying to roll over, which again would potentially mean alts outperforming in 2026. What is that going to take? It's going to take some crazy monetary policy. It's going to take some crazy stimulus. And they're talking about it. So we'll see if that happens. But that's what I think you'd need for alts to wake up again. Now, again, I wouldn't trade what you want or hope to happen. I would just trade strength right now and figure it out as you go along here over the next couple months. But this setup is not bullish whatsoever. 23, 24, 25, very bullish up until you're losing the cloud here. This is not bullish on high time frames. So that is good for alts. You also have the inverse set up on total 2 minus stables. This is an inverted head and shoulders all day, right? You just need a little push above the diag. So the good news is it shouldn't be a secret. It should be fairly obvious, right? If you get a lower low on dominance, that to me is a go signal. It's likely to happen if ETH BTC is strong. Same thing with total 2. You get a higher high here. It's not going to be a secret. I think it's a little early to paint alts with a broad brush. And again, just focus on strength. I don't think total 2 is anything here. I didn't look at total 3 or others, but it's mainly just an ETH BTC show right now, in my opinion. I don't really care why. Again, it could be Tom Lee buying, whoever buying ETFs. I don't think it's anything specifically. That's just where the market's at. ETH looks stronger. It's outperforming. End of story. I haven't looked at the watch charts in a long time, probably a couple months. And I was shocked that they have bounced as much as they had. But this is in line with alts bottoming, things trying to bottom. Here's the 5-year. Things trying to bottom. And on the speculative side, on the types of people that, maybe trade watches or trade alts, trade NFTs, this is at this point a multi-month bottom. It certainly doesn't look weak to me. If we zoom all the way out, you can see pre-post COVID, I just went crazy and sort of like mean reverted. And now we're in that like trough of disillusionment or whatever. But this to me is also a very good sign for alts to see that over the past year, we've had a very good trajectory on alt adjacent markets. I'm sure TCGs, Pokemon cards, Magic cards, probably similar as far as the trajectory here. And it hasn't quite worked its way into crypto yet. If we look at NFTs, they all look like they're in the gutter. CryptoPunks at multi-year lows, Bored Apes, multi-year lows, Pudgy Penguins, multi-year lows. So if I was looking to be like maximally speculative right now, this is probably one of the places I would start thinking is NFTs, which is wild for me to say, but to see the ETH price action, to see the watch price action, to see the potential for alts to outperform, this to me is like the highest risk reward is NFTs right now because they look god awful, right? I mean, this is literally probably an all-time low for Bored Apes. The risk here is like maybe you pick the wrong one, maybe you pick the wrong one in the collection, right? There's tons and tons and tons of risks with this. I'm sure people are going to eviscerate me in the comments, but I do think about NFTs now or slightly a couple months from now on if and when you want to be trading those. I'm going to focus on Kraken Desktop today because it's just quicker for me to flip through everything. As good as ETH looks, Sol also is forming a very clear bottom here, inverted head and shoulders. It's not a bullish trend, but it has stopped bleeding. So I don't hate Sol here either. This looks very good. Anything above 145 and it's probably go time. Target being probably close to 187, something in there. Most of the rest of these charts kind of look like Ripple, where they just sort of faded continuously over the past couple months, haven't recovered post 1010. You know we're back when we mean revert or retrace to the 1010 candle. That's the litmus test for everything. That's the benchmark for everything. Can this stuff retrace? Is the money back in the market yet? Clearly no. I don't even necessarily see a setup on Ripple. A lot of people asking about Zcash. There was a low time frame W that's playing out. Sure, you know, I'm not sold that the market's quite still in the Zcash train, but similar to ETH, if this can retrace and retake a bullish TK cross on the daily, I don't hate it. Cardano, more of the same. Again, all these charts probably going to look about the same. This kind of looks like MSTR. You could probably argue an inverted head and shoulders here. So if you're taking punts on alts, it's really just personal choice. You know, I'd rather trade ETH leverage, BMNR, stuff like that, than mess around with some of this other stuff. It just, yeah, it can be up 2x ETH or whatever, but ETH feels like the better bet right now to me. SUI, same deal. You know, everything's pretty much where you'd expect it to be. Just continuous bleed after 1010. Monero's okay, and anytime I don't talk about Monero, people come after me, but you've got this massive, mega, ultra, insane, uber cup and handle on the high time frames. So maybe this is something to continue to watch with alerts. Whether or not you like this as a trade is up to you, depending on how patient you want to be. Maybe you take some ETH profits and rotate it into XMR. But the setup is there. Whether or not this actually plays out is tough. But yes, the setup is there. The fundamentals are better than Zcash. It's no argument, okay? That's not the point. The point is, does this move or not? I don't know. Nobody can really buy it outside of Kraken. Link in most of DeFi is kind of just, right, what is this? I don't know. I got nothing. Tau, same deal. There's really nothing for me here. It's a lot of chop. It's a lot of sideways. AVAX, similar to Sol, where it's trying, you know, it's trying to triple bottom here. I'm just not confident you're going to see, with some of these, you're going to see follow through beyond the initial move. That's why I would focus on strength. Personally, I would focus on the higher caps until we get some stronger moves on alts across the board. There's nothing wrong with like trying on some stuff, but I wouldn't go big on anything that doesn't already show a bunch of strength. LTC is another one where it just has continued to consolidate for years, hasn't really broken out. Ideally, this goes to 300-400, but it's not going to do that overnight. You know, it's going to need some time. Aave, DeFi stuff again, trying to bottom, maybe a pretty convincing inverted head and shoulders, but you can hear it in my voice. You know, am I convinced to throw some money at that? No. Same deal. You know, we can measure all these as like some sort of channel that we're trying to break out of, similar to Metaplanet. It's just, do you want to take that trade? I don't love it personally, but it's there if you want to. You know, there's this, right? It really depends on your risk appetite, your leverage, your sizing. I would rather throw money at ETH. That's it, right? I mean, that's where the market's at. It feels like the right place to be. DOT, same deal, nothing there. CAS, nothing. Algo, no. But again, some of these, you can sort of see some like gross, maybe inverted head and shoulders down there. Tron, no. HBAR, continuous, just bleed, kind of like Ripple. Stellar also. IHS. Another thing you do is just say, look, some of these look okay enough to take the trade. Maybe you pick 5, maybe you pick 10, spread it out. 7 of those don't work. 3 of those pay for the rest, and then some. That's one way to tackle this as well. TIA, definitely not. I would just rather personally focus on ETH again. That's all. Curve, whatever. ENA, no. FET, no. Near, nothing. MNT, you know, trying to do something maybe on the daily. That's not really my cup of tea. Ondo, Atom, Render, all of these. What is there to do? I don't know. I mean, you can start buying and holding a bunch. Doesn't feel like the best strategy to me. You could be right. You could be very wrong. You could just, you know, buy your favorite 20 and say, all right, any new lower lows and I'm out. But you got to be honest with yourself. because it could be a pretty long journey here throughout 2026. Ton nothing. I'm just not the type of person to buy weakness like this. Crow maybe trying to do something down here. Maybe a flag, bear flag. Just nothing. Nothing yet. Nothing yet. HNT, Ray. I mean, this is just everything, right? SNX way down after popping up. That's why alt's typically not a buy and hold. Certainly not in a bear period. Piff, Beam, and there's just nothing. There's just nothing here. Did we look at syrup? Is that on my list? I'm thinking about that because that was one that was sort of contra to the rest of the market. Yeah, I think we did, but nothing there. And then for memes, I don't see anything on the daily there. Doge needs some time. SPX maybe trying for an inverted head and shoulders. But again, I would rather just trade leveraged ETH. Personally, that's basically what this is anyway. It's leveraged majors. It's alts on steroids. That's what meme coins are. Pengu maybe trying to bottom. Whiff, nothing. Pepe, It's a lot of maybe it's an inverted head and shoulders, maybe it's not. Right. Now, again, you could size this appropriately and say, all right, let's throw some money at this, but not the house or the farm, and maybe we get lucky, but my head's just not there. Bonk, Moodang, no. Trump, no. Popcat, no. I don't see it right now. Mog, no. The thing is, all of these could bounce in 30 minutes, right? So that's the other thing. You can just trade the event and say, I think we're going to be dovish. I think the Fed's going to come out and say good things, and we're going to hear good noises. Totally possible. But across the board here, outside of ETH and ETHBTC, I don't really see much. And that's okay. You don't need to trade the entire market. Just let the market come to you. I like focusing on strength as I go through the BTC pairs here. There just really isn't anything to do, in my opinion. Not yet. But I would focus on dominance. If dominance breaks down, then clearly that's good for alts. And that's going to be led by ETHBTC. So this is what you want. This is what anybody would want. If they are bullish alts, they want to see the leader breaking up like this. That's all I got for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.